turning 10 is a huge milestone for a lot of things, even if in retrospect, one of those things aren't humans. It's a little bit of a trip to think that your favorite media is older than most memes will ever live to be, but I can assure you that the thing you like probably is older than the majority of the internet nowadays. 2016 was a long time ago, if you recall. It was a beautiful time, back when the Obama administration was finishing up and Harambe was the latest meme. I was still in school, playing video games, blissfully unaware of the state the world was about to be headed in. Jason is a chapter that is going to be part of the 10th anniversary release, along with presumably a survivor, though we won't see the survivor until after the PTB, which is probably long enough after I stop playing this game again and boot up Deadlock. The Slasher, as Jason is called in the game, is yet another killer where his power is multifaceted, rather than being based off of one gimmick. You know what I mean when I say one gimmick. Trapper places his traps, Hillbilly runs with a chainsaw, the Blight fucking cheats. Nowadays you have a lot more variants with how killer powers are made. Most of the time when killers come out, it's like reading an entire bibliography trying to read their power description. So I'll explain it to you in plain English, while also trying to be funny by being snarky in a really annoying way. The Slasher has two main sub-powers as a part of his whole power. The first one is called Omnipresent Evil, which allows him to enter a stealth state where he can't see survivors, nor can survivors see him. Relax, it's not like Spirit. It's a lot more like Dracula's bat form. While in this state, you move faster and can see certain location markers that tell you where survivors are. If you call this dash lop, I will kill you. Footsteps become more visible in this mode, and when a survivor performs an action like repairing a generator or healing another survivor, you see a red mist at their location. Yes, you finally have a spirit like that doesn't have to rely on scratch marks. You did it, big man, let's go. However, there is an asterisk. Unlike Spirit or Dracula, Jason here has to jump scare survivors first in order to exit out of his power. He can't even kick generators while in this mode, so you do eventually want to exit it. In order to jump scare survivors though, he has to exit his power at a window or pallet, automatically vaulting the window or breaking the pallet if it's down. It'll also allow you to break breakable walls, but who gives a shit? While this does seem in line with the character, in that he frequently seems to disappear into fog that just magically appears when he's around. I do have a gripe with this mechanic. Frequently, I'll end up finding survivors at a generator that has 0 windows or pallets nearby. I end up losing the element of surprise due to this, which just makes the power feel clunky. I would have much preferred that you could exit the power at any time, but only while you're not being actively looked at. They have Spine Chill in the game, so I know they can detect when people are looking. Come on, behavior, just this one, please listen to me. Oh right, the other part of the power. When Jason was first released, I was initially scared that he'd have a chainsaw, and behavior would have to figure out yet another way to make a chainsaw power work, which, if you remember, took them 5 tries for 2 different killers. However, it seems like that's not really something Jason does, and it's just something people give to Jason when they don't know what else to give him. I like the approach that behavior did though, by giving him a Spartan Javelin. When Jason loads into the match, he spawns in with a giant spike. You can aim it, much like Huntress or Springtrap, and throw it, much like Huntress or Springtrap. You know, maybe they just don't have any original ideas anymore. I liken it to a mix of both powers. While there's only one spike that Jason can throw at a time, much like Springtrap, they don't come back to Jason automatically, instead being reloaded at specific locations, or hooks. Just keep in mind that if you reload at hooks, Jason literally grabs the hook part and breaks it for a few seconds, making it unusable if you want to hook survivors. In exchange, this allows the spike to get stuck in survivors, breaking them like Springtrap. You also automatically reload when placing survivors on hooks if you don't already have a spike. These spike spots are limited in quantity though, and can only be replenished when you go into Omnipresent Evil. The spike also isn't like any other projectile in the game, as it shoots at a very straight arc. While there is gravity, it's less like a hatchet and more like a hit scan bullet. It's also a bit hard to aim, so my best piece of advice is to aim a bit lower than you're expecting, and aim using the tip of the spike. He also has a couple mini moris when impaling an already injured survivor with the hook spike while they're on death hook, and all the moris are absolutely brutal. So much in fact that I won't show you them because I might get demonetized. So that's the power, and it feels very in line to what Jason has been made out to be in horror. He's a bit like Michael Myers, which might be a little bit blasphemous depending on who you are, but they're both big strong men that walk slow as hell, but can seemingly appear out of nowhere despite that. Speaking of big strong men, I do think it's really funny that we somehow come full circle and brought in the guy that Trapper was supposed to be referencing. And while Jason gets a cool teleport and a giant spear, Trapper still gets stuck in his trap sometimes. Now let's look at the perks, and I have to be honest, they're both thematic and cool perk designs that haven't been tapped into. I say this because there's one I thought of a long time ago, and you'll just have to trust my word on it because I can't find it anywhere. Hex Scared to Death is yet another hexpert that doesn't start at the start of the trial. Instead, it activates when you hook 3 different survivors, and then while the hex is up, kicking a down pallet causes all survivors within 13 meters to be slowed down for 3 seconds. You know, I would say these are horrendous numbers to be dealing with until I figured out that these are meant to be the teensiest little reference to Friday the 13th, and I just couldn't anymore. My recommendation is to pair this up with something like Pain Res or Grim Embrace. That way you're at least doing something while working towards a 3-hook requirement. I would also pair this with Rampage or Thwack, as they all activate when breaking pallets. In case you're curious, Rampage builds up tokens when you break a pallet or wall, up to 13. Then when you're blinded or pallet stunned, you gain 1% haste per token for 13 seconds. Then the perk goes on cooldown. This perk would be nice if people didn't fucking pre-drop the pallet every time. While it is cool that theoretically, you can literally go on a rampage by breaking a pallet, then catch up to a survivor before they reach another tile, it does require you to get stunned or blinded before activating, and I just don't think that's worth it unless you bring along enduring and brutal strength. Don't worry, I'll explain these all later. It'll be like delayed gratification, something a part of my audience definitely isn't familiar with. Finally, Silent Shadow grants you undetectable at the start of the trial for 13 seconds or until you down someone. Then when all the generators are complete, you gain undetectable again for the rest of the trial. Okay, I like it. Yes, that 13 seconds is really short, but so is Lethal Pursuer, and that still gets run all the time. I think the variety it lends itself to means this can be both used as an endgame perk and an early game perk. This perk doesn't really work on Jason, or most stealth killers out there, because they usually have undetectable at the start of the trial anyways. Ideally, this would be used on someone like the Hillbilly or the Blight, someone who can really benefit from the first few seconds of survivors not knowing where you are. I was going to say also this might be useful on Trapper for the narrative satisfaction, but he's a bit too slow to make good use of this. Sorry buddy, we failed you. Maybe next year. Jason's add-ons aren't anything too special. It's about what you'd expect. Number 2 there, small gimmick there, etc, etc. Even the iridescent add-ons are basic compared to the add-ons we've had from other licensed killers in recent memory. Dirty Money is an iridescent add-on that gives you tokens when a generator is completed. Then when you vault a window or break a pallet, you send a token to gain a spike if you don't already have one. This one isn't the best, to be honest. There's already so many spike reload stations scattered around the map that you can just go to one like you're living in a walkable city. Even if the only ones you have near you are hooks, there's enough hooks around the map that you can just grab one and hook the survivor somewhere else. The iridescent boat motor allows you to mark windows while in your power by passing through them. Then when you exit your power, all those windows are blocked for 5 seconds. While this one is a little bit more useful, you can't just mark the entire map and then block all the windows for 5 seconds, as the mark only lasts for 13 seconds, because you really couldn't resist a reference. So it's only useful within the loop, but at that point just bring Bamboozle or something. I would like to recommend a few add-ons, just in case you wanted to play Jason, which if you're a fan of horror at all, you probably will, but if you're a fan of Dead by Daylight, you probably won't. iGoop lets you gain undetectable for 9 seconds after grabbing a spike from a hook. This one confuses me. Where's the gain undetectable for 13 seconds after hitting a survivor and hook 13 times? This add-on lets you sneak up on other people after hooking a survivor, which is a lot like Furtive Chase but without having to hook the Obsession now that I think about it. Hooks also serve a dual purpose here, as they end up being little hotspots that let you grab undetectable really quickly. Of course you could always use your Omnipresent Evil, but it does help at least a little in Chase to spook survivors. Coroner's Coffee gives you 13% haste for 3 seconds when injuring a survivor with a spike, but it also increases the distance survivors are pushed back by spikes by 25%. Oh, I failed to mention this earlier, but when you hit a survivor with a spike, they fly backwards a bit. If you hit them with a hook spike and they hit a wall while injured, they become stuck and Jason can grab them. But generally speaking, you're going to be sending them away from you, making it harder to catch up. This leads perfectly into the few tips I have for Jason. This isn't going to be a long section, relax. While the spike is a good projectile, I generally wouldn't recommend sticking to it for injuries or downs. Jason is meant to be played a bit like both a traditional M1 character and M2 projectile character at the same time. With how slow he takes to ready that thing up, survivors can realize you're going to throw it at them and then dodge out of the way. His spear isn't the best at loops, as he can't really hit crouching survivors that are hiding behind cover. It's mostly useful against W gamers, though the extra distance they get pushed back means it's better to use it to end a chase rather than to start one. Also, you can always use Omnipresent Evil during a chase to surprise or cut people off. Remember, you can usually pinpoint where they are better than they can pinpoint where you are. The only way for them to respond to you going into your power is by leaving the loop, but you can also just follow them out of the loop. To help you along your Jason journey, might I recommend some perks? Surge is a perk belonging to the Demogorgon, which when you down a survivor, damages generators within 32 meters of you and causes them to start regressing. You aren't always going to be getting downs at the spike, and with how often you can jumpscare survivors working on generators, you can quickly down them and bring them down whatever progress they might have made. I'm sure you all know by now what Pain Res and Grim Embrace do, so I won't dwell on them too long. All I will say is that you should generally plan on spreading your hooks out, but don't be afraid to tunnel if the situation calls for it. It's okay, the people on the other side of the screen can shout all they want, but they can't fight against the awesome power closing the endgame chat box. Finally, Enduring is a hillbilly perk that reduces the time you spend in your stun animation by 50%. Pairing this with Brutal Strength, which speeds up your pallet breaking time, and Rampage, which I talked about earlier, creates a sickening combo that I can only liken to eating an ice cream sandwich during a hot summer day. Yeah, Hubris also works too. Before we close out the video, let's discuss the new Survivor perks that got introduced into PTB, but I forgot to record footage of them because the Survivor for this chapter wasn't out yet. Wide Open Throttle gives you 15% haste after fast vomiting a pallet. It then resets and blocks the pallet before going on cooldown. And if you combine this with Lithe, you get the fastest sprint known to man. With this, you might not want to vault right in the killer's face, as they can very easily walk through the pallet and keep chasing you. If you go against a projectile killer like Jason, they might even be able to snipe you while you dash away. Though if you do combine this with Lithe, you might just be able to dash away anyway. Lend a Hand activates after blessing or cleansing a totem. Then while healing another survivor, pressing the active ability button grants them instant 4 permanent healing progress. This effect can only be used once per trial, and you can't stack this on one survivor with 3 of your friends. We've never seen something like this before, so I'm going to assume that by permanent healing progress, it means the healing doesn't reset through to things like hemorrhage. And well, that part doesn't really bother me. What does bother me is the fact that it's practically a 25% instant heal after cleansing or blessing a totem. Healing speeds are already so quick that you might as well not even bother injuring survivors in the first hugging place. At the moment though, I'm only concerned for Sips, as while you can't stack it on one survivor to make it an instant healing nightmare, you can still put it on everyone in the trial. Cross-examination lets you see light marks while in the killer's tear radius. They're basically scratch marks for killers. While in those light marks, you gain elusive for the duration of you staying in those light marks, and then for 5 seconds afterwards. Now I was going to write a small paragraph about how bad this perk is because hiding your aura doesn't really matter when the killer is right there, but I forgot that elusive also hides scratch marks, which a killer often uses to track someone when they don't have a line of sight. So it's super easy to just leave chase without the killer knowing. You could do this before with other elusive perks and other perks that hid your scratch marks, but because of how easy it is to activate, you practically escape chases for free. It's definitely not the worst perk survivors have ever gotten, but come on dude, you could have gotten this any other effect. Why don't you actually make use of the name you gave it, and made it so you could see the killer's aura for a few seconds after standing in the light marks for a bit. That would be a good example of a cross-examination. I do hope they give these new mechanics some more love, as there's a lot of interesting potential for light marks alone. I think just being able to tell where a killer was is cool on its own. But at the moment, these perks aren't the greatest I've ever seen. Survivors definitely do not need another buff though, that's for damn certain. Okay, so final thoughts. I thought the lore was cool. I quite like the fact that the Unknown got to appear in more stories other than its own chapter. And the fact that Jason put up a fight with an entity like the Unknown is quite interesting, and left me wondering if maybe, just maybe, someone with behavior was a power skiller. In case you didn't know, this chapter is going to be a bit like the Ghostface chapter, in that they couldn't get the rights to the Friday the 13th movie, but they did get the rights to Jason Voorhees, the character. So they're most likely going to do an original Survivor, but it looks like there's not going to be a map centered around a lake, which is kind of disappointing, and also probably why the killer queues are so bad right now. Listen, Behavior, if you want more people to play the Survivor when these PTBs roll around, maybe actually release the Survivor the chapter is supposed to have, just for me. It would have been nice to have someone to lump in these general perks in for me, instead of me having to search through the entire fucking perk library. I also think it's pretty dumb of them to wait a whole 13 hours to reveal the killer in the livestream of theirs. I know they wanted to go to a whole 13-bit, but sometimes you just have to accept you've gone too far with the bit and not follow through with it. 10 years is a lot of time for things to grow, and the fact that the Survivor side has 12 pages worth of perks is kind of mind-boggling, to be honest. But so many things have changed over the past 10 years. I've graduated college, released my own game, started streaming again. Behavior changed from a small-time indie developer to a huge company with millions of eyes on them. And they definitely made a lot more mistakes than I have over the years, that's for sure. Overall, the chapter surprised me in a lot of ways, but it also underwhelmed in a lot of ways. Hopefully the 10th anniversary event they got planned is cool, because otherwise I'm probably just going to be playing Deadlock for the rest of the event. I guess some things haven't changed. Thank you so much for watching. I know it's been a bit since I did a YouTube video, and there's a good reason for that. With college I didn't have a lot of time to do the things I wanted to do, including video editing, so making videos and streaming got put on the back burner for that period of time. And with me out of college, I can finally put my time and effort into projects like these, at least until I have some other thing to distract me for the time being. What did you think of the Jason reveal? Did you think that it was dumb? Let me know in the comments. Also, let me know what topics you'd like me to cover in the future. I have a lot of ideas already, but I'm also willing to hear the audience out on what they'd like to see, because of course, I'm making this stuff for you guys at the end of the day. Also, be sure to like and subscribe to see me yap about things that interest me. And finally, be sure to download Roguesaur. I put a lot of time and effort into it, so I'd really appreciate it if you could give it your support. Links in the description, and I think that's it. Okay, bye.